Hello and welcome to Cheetah TV. My name's Brian Badger from the Cheetah Conservation Fund. Now, if you've seen some of the shows so far, you'll know that this series of videos is designed to give you an insight and some background on some of the projects and the initiatives that are operated by CCF, both in Namibia and in fact around the world. Now, today's edition covers the illegal wildlife trade, which obviously is a very emotive subject. But when you're working in this particular subject, like many other conflict areas of conservation, you really have to kind of rise above the sadness and circumvent the anger and accept the chance of people disagreeing. At the same time, you've got to remain positive, passionate and focused. Now, it sounds complicated, and I guess it is, but that's life. So to learn more about the efforts in the Horn of Africa and the surrounding areas of Africa and the Middle East, I was joined by Dr. Cheetah Yashve, who's the illegal wildlife crime lead for the Cheetah Conservation Fund, to give us a little bit of background and a better understanding of this challenging area of conservation. Now, as always, if you want to learn more about this particular subject or any project that Cheetah Conservation Fund is involved with, please visit our website at cheetah.org. Before you leave, if you enjoyed the video or you found it interesting, please leave us a like and subscribe to our channel. It really does help us grow. In the meantime, let's go across and speak to Cheetah. So hello, Cheetah, and welcome, and thanks for joining us today. Why don't you introduce yourself to everybody?
Hello, Brian. So I'm Dr. Cheetah Yashve. I'm a veterinary doctor and I'm the illegal wildlife trade lead for CCF. Basically, I do both. I also do wildlife crime work and work on animal welfare and animal health to guide our work in Somaliland and our safe house for the confiscated cheetahs from the illegal trade.
That's great, and that's quite a wide, broad, kind of remit that you've got. But with this subject, it takes in so many factors that hopefully we'll cover some of those today. So, the times that we find ourselves in the global pandemic, how is that affecting the work that you're doing right now?
So basically, as our supporters probably know, CCF has been involved in the Horn of Africa, since 2005, but we've been working on anything from underground projects to international policy to stop the trade in cheetahs coming from East Africa to the Arabian Peninsula mostly, and also operating a safe house for these cheetahs that are confiscated and need veterinary support and, of course, lifelong care. And what we've seen because of our involvement on the ground and having people there, of course, and working very closely with governments, is that COVID-19, I don't know if surprisingly or not, has not stopped the trade or even slowed it down at all. The virus did hit East Africa around, it was Ethiopia, Somalia, and those regions were hit at the end of March, but it did not seem like there weren't a lot of, there were some lockdowns, but there weren't a lot of lockdowns specifically, for instance, in Somaliland, and it didn't seem like poaching events, especially in rural areas and remote areas, are getting any fewer events that we're seeing. So yeah, it seems that COVID-19 is another challenge that we need to deal with, but it's not stopping the trade, so we need to be even more vigilant.
Yeah, because when there's lots of misconceptions that go around, because I mean, and this is not belittling or patronizing anybody, but you only kind of know from the situation that you're in. So if you're in the States or in Europe and you're looking at COVID-19 and you're looking about the lockdown, and the travel is restricted, people may think that's a good thing, like with the tourism and stuff like that. But if you're a rural farmer in Somaliland or something like that, you're restricted anyway. The international travel was never an option before, and so it's almost changed. So it shouldn't really be that much of a surprise that it hasn't you know, kind of stopped the trade, and also it certainly can't stop our efforts to do it. So when you're talking, you mentioned the safe house and the fact that you're a veterinary doctor as well. Can you tell us a little bit about the safe house and how that's been developed over the, you know, since our time out in Somaliland?
Right. So yeah, definitely. We started getting involved in Somaliland actually before I was in my role as wildlife crime lead. And again, in 2005 was the first time we started tracking the trade and everything. But then slowly but surely our involvement grew. And we realized that with the Somaliland government not having a place to put, again, this is live trade. We're talking about live animals being trafficked and moved across the landscape. And they need obviously emergency treatment if they're confiscated. They need somewhere to place them. And unfortunately, because they are poached at such a young age and taken from the mother at a way too young age to be able to return to the wild, they need a facility where they can live the rest of their lives in. And realizing that we don't have that in Somaliland, CCF basically filled a gap. We started with one kind of small facility, and now we're on our way to building a third one already. So we've gone through a few stages where we first built Safe House 2, which was another facility because again of the growing numbers of confiscated cubs. Then we renovated the first one to have more expanded enclosures, brought in more staff, more veterinarians, more caretakers. And then now we're seeing that with the numbers rising again, regardless of COVID-19, again, numbers are rising. We need even a third one. And long term, we hope to have a permanent sanctuary where they could be released. But again, it wouldn't be to the wild without, you know, just to release to the wild. It would have to still be in a sanctuary that would be managed. So yeah, so our involvement grew. I think one of the things that CCF is very unique at is that it's not only, and again, as my role to basically combat the illegal trade, working with governments, working with communities, of course, to learn more about these poaching events and about these trade chains, working with international treaties and everything, we're also very much hands-on. So starting from taking care of, you know, every sick cub that comes in to making sure that he has the best vaccination protocol and the best chances of being a healthy adult, even with all the things that they experienced during the trafficking, which was a lot of them do not survive that stage, of course.
One thing, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but from the outside looking in, when I've spoken to people, and the fact that we're talking about Somaliland so much, and we're talking about the illegal wildlife trade and these cubs and the shocking condition that they arrive into us sometimes, it almost paints this picture that Somaliland are the bad guys. You know, it's the problem is Somaliland, and you know, I've been to Somaliland myself, and that's really not the case. You know, the Somaliland is kind of the end stop on the illegal wildlife route. So I think it's important that we point out that the Somaliland government and working with us are trying to do everything to stop this trade as well. So, you know, I didn't want people to think that it was just, you know, Somaliland is the problem. Would you agree with that?
Right. No, not at all. And that's the thing that we're trying to always emphasize. As an NGO, we always work closely with the governments in the countries where we operate. And the Somalian government has always been a welcoming and a very good partner, basically, that allowed us to give our support and give our expertise. And it's funny that you raise this issue, because a lot of times when you see, whether it's articles or reports, you know, the World Wildlife Crime Report, reports from conventions on trade, you see the high numbers in certain countries. And a lot of times all that these numbers reflect is the countries that actually do something about it. So they have a lot of seizures because they're more vigilant, they're doing a lot of enforcement work, they're working, maybe partnering with NGOs that are helping them do these confiscations and seizures and then take care of the animals or the products that are trafficked. So we think that yes, definitely, we know that these cubs are taken from the Horn of Africa and trafficked, but the reason why Somaliland is always kind of mentioned is because that's where most of the confiscations occur. So some of them could be originating, these are cheetahs from Somaliland, but some could be from neighboring countries. And then these are then just confiscated. The authorities in Somaliland are the one that intercept them. And that is why we chose to operate there, because there you need a lot of capacity to take care of these cubs. And of course, that's why we also support the government with trainings on enforcement, on legal capacity to make sure that they can do their work even better, while also, of course, supporting the other countries in the region that could be source countries or transit countries, as well as starting to work towards demand reduction work and looking at the end of the supply chain. So we're trying to do all of that. So yeah, thank you for raising that issue. It's definitely something that our supporters and people in general should know about illegal trade.
Yeah, I mean, to use an analogy, it's almost like just reading a headline and then just trying to understand the story. You know, you really need to read down
Right.
to the editorial to actually understand the thing. And unfortunately, sometimes it's just, and it kind of annoys me in some ways that, you know, that's it's almost like Somaliland have almost taken ownership, you know, and they're doing something, and that's what puts them out. And like you very eloquently said, you know, it's that's kind of what gets the headlines. So when we're talking about the illegal wildlife trade, you know, what type of things? Because obviously we're dealing with the cheetahs, but the problem is a lot broader than that. We all know that. So how do these things overlap? And is there methods and models that are being built on the back of what we're doing to maybe mitigate some other problems that are occurring in the region?
Right. To that, I think I would also, to answer that and to maybe add to what we were just discussing, another factor that is important to note is that even though, for instance, in the cheetah trade, Somaliland is the country where is a lot in the headlines, the surrounding countries are very active and trying to work against this trade as well. So we have Ethiopia, Somalia, and Yemen that are part of our project that we're running with funding from the UK government. We're working with all the IGAD countries, which is a regional economic collaboration of countries that we're working together to build a HAWA and a Horn of African Wildlife Enforcement Network. And in that sense, they're working together. Basically, these kind of regional cooperations help not only to work against the illegal trade in cheetahs, as you said, it facilitates cooperation, cross-border work, enforcement, community work also on other species. So we do know that the Horn of Africa is an area where ivory is getting trafficked from and through. We know that marine resources, there's a lot of coastline there and a lot of illegal fishing that's going on. Even primates are being trafficked through there. It's also a very interesting region politically, and also, of course, with the war in Yemen and everything that's going on the other side. So there's a lot of political background that goes into the illegal, you know, to allow or not allow illegal trade and work against it. So all these things are very complex, obviously, in nature, but we are very happy to see that whenever we reach out to governments, or wherever we're trying to build a new program or to apply for funding for new project, all of the governments in the region, like I said, including Ethiopia, Somalia, Yemen, are very much collaborative. So yeah, and I think that they understand that it's not only cheetahs that they're trying to save, it's also their other wildlife. And by building these networks and having more capacity and more training and more skills for their men or women, they would basically have the ability to stop trade in general.
You make a very good point, yeah, and thank you for making it. You know, when I said that, you know, Somaliland wasn't the guilty party, that it's not, they're not the problem, and likewise, Somaliland can't just be the solution. You know, so it does take massive collaborations. You know, and when we talk to people right the way across the CCF spectrum and all the work that we do, the word collaboration comes up all the time. You know, you can't do this alone. So with the collaborations that you spoke about, you know, you're talking about all levels as well, I would imagine, you know, both NGO and government level as well. Is that right?
Yeah, that's 100% right. I think that is very unique to our work, and it's also very much needed. You cannot work alone. CCF has built over 30 years skills and expertise, obviously, in not only in cheetah conservation and natural resource management and working with communities, of course, and very good working relationship with governments. But at the end of the day, you have to have collaboration with governments, of course, in the countries where you work on or that are affected by these illegal activities, but also we're working very, very closely with an NGO coalition. We call it the Cheetah NGO coalition, work and regional collaboration that they're trying, right, to build this, or they're working to build this Horn of Africa Wildlife Enforcement Network, which is a regional network that would countries talking to each other to stop this trade, that are working together on protocols together and what to do with live animals that need to maybe be, you know, moved between countries. So collaboration is definitely the name of the game on all levels. I agree.
I would imagine that you know, I've been with CCF quite a long time, and you know, when you're looking at the models that CCF have built over the years, and I always say that, you know, a lot of the time you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You know, sometimes you just have to adjust the tire pressure sometimes. And, you know, even when you're working just in Namibia, you know, you have to alter the way that you do things between maybe the Herero people and the Damara people and the Bushmen and the Himba, you know, so those models that have been built, how useful have they been in, you know, the kind of nuts and bolts of the strategy building for the region?
Right. So I think, yeah, I think you're right. A lot of the methods and strategies, whether they're from, you know, an ecological lens or kind of wildlife management lens, or through how to, for instance, do a program for human wildlife coexistence, or whether it's for how to communicate with governments and be, you know, and collaborate on a political level, whether international, national, or regional. All these things are things that CCF and Dr. Marker have been developing for years. And the best practices that she developed over the years are definitely helping us in informing our efforts, whether it's, as we said, in demand countries that now we're looking into, or in the origin and transit countries that we're already working on. And one interesting note is that we're now starting to understand, and this is something that we're still looking into, again, working very closely with communities, how maybe more complex motivations of these trade might play a role. So we do know that there's demand. These cheetahs, at the end of the day, are these cubs, if they do arrive to the Arabian Peninsula, they're kept, or they're bought and kept as exotic pets. But so there is an exotic pet market, but we also know that probably in the initial poaching event, there is a level of human wildlife conflict with communities of the mother maybe preying on their livestock, and then the cubs are getting taken. So there's maybe a more complex nature to this trade than initially thought. And definitely programs like Future Farmers of Africa, which Dr. Marker developed over the years and tested and retested and tweaked, are going to now, we're now going to see how they can be applied to East Africa as well, with what you're saying, kind of basically tailoring it to this area. So the political, the cultural, the ecological contexts of this region, of course. So yeah, I think definitely there's the institutional knowledge that CCF has basically gained through the years is very much is and will be implemented in the Horn of Africa as well.
The way that it looks to me, and again, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it's almost like this ethos of promoting self-sustainability. You know, it's not just you know, sending foreigners in to work and work and work and work and work. It's empowering the communities, much the same where you know, at CCF, when we strongly advocate the Namibian and the African internship programs, you know, teaching them to be self-sustaining. So is the thought, that living document type thing that you're moving along, you know, the way that I understand it, it's that same ethos. It's getting that homegrown talent and refining it. So for future self-sustainability, that's the key to the success.
Right. I think it's both. It's also, like you said, always knowing that you have something to learn, and then change, even if, you know, make sure that you always check your premises and change based on what the information tells you. But then also, yes, ensuring that any strategy that you try to develop and implement is one that would be self-sustaining and that would actually benefit also, you know, people that are living alongside wildlife. Again, we can come in and bring teachers and you know, veterinary medicine professors, but that's not the point. The point is to also, as part, for instance, of the UK funded grant that I mentioned before, we call it the LICIT program. We do a lot there. We do enforcement training, we do legal analysis of laws, and then legal training for governments and enforcement officials. But then we also are looking into do what we call training of trainers workshops. So then we train someone, and then we expect them to, or we give them the tools and then expect them to train the next generation, and then it would go on and on this way. Of course, this does require continued engagement, and I think this is something that CCF is very good at, to know that, you know, whatever grant, whatever program that you have is ended, we do not leave. We're always there to help support, but at some point we know that it has to be self-sustaining. So, but we're here to support, to give more knowledge, to help with whatever we can. But at the end of the day, the governments, the people, the communities are the ones that need to be responsible and want to be responsible. Of course, it's their land, it's their landscape, and it's their wildlife.
Yeah, when I talk to you know, my colleagues that I've worked in through Africa, again, it's the, you know, you're never too old to learn something type scenario. And even the way that you do things, you know, you've got a problem, you know where the solution needs to be, but it's the middle bit, you know, and the phrase that I've used in my time in Africa is bush mechanics. You know, it's making the best of what you got in the situation that you find yourself. So, you know, understanding the diagnosis and the cure is the middle bit, you know, that sometimes you do need people with that inherent knowledge of landscape, of everything to do that. So again, it's those collaborations that no one person knows everything. And I kind of think that that's one of the big positives that comes out of working not only in Africa, but around the world with endemic people.
And of course, you know, with everything in the collaboration, there's a lot of challenges, you know, there's a lot of issues of resources. You want to bring that, you know, diagnostic machine or whatever there, and you just don't have the resources, or you want to build a larger facility and you need to first make sure that you have funding and people and staff. And of course, on the wildlife crime side, you want the teams of the governments that are even keen to do this. You want them to be very much, you know, trained in evidence collection and to know how to do investigations and everything. But there's always challenges. There's challenges in resources, there's challenges in skills and capacity building issues that you need to go through. But I think that what we're trying to basically do is build a holistic strategy that would take into consideration everything that needs to be done, and then also, like you said, look at the ground and see how best to do it in the way that would build on existing efforts or things that are already there that we can build on, and where we need to bring in, you know, new initiatives and to work to basically reach our goal of stopping this illegal trade. Because at the end of the day, the safe house is a very important part of our work. But, and again, as wildlife crime lead, my aim is to stop this trade so we won't need the safe house. Of course, as we said, this is a lifelong care facility. So the cheetahs that are there, they would need the safe house or a sanctuaries for the rest of their lives. But our aim is to just stop this trade so that we won't have new ones that are, because any new cheetah that is coming into the safe house means it's one less cheetah in the wild population. And with populations being so low across the globe for cheetahs, less than 7,500, and of course in the Horn of Africa, which is a unique subspecies of which we don't know the exact number of that specific subspecies. Surveys have shown around 300 mature individuals, but we don't know because a lot of these areas in Somalia and different areas were not surveyed. But for sure, we're not talking about millions. So we're talking about hundreds of individuals. So we need to make sure that this trade is stopped, that we would not live to see the day where the subspecies would be gone. And of course, the cheetahs and the species in general would be gone. So yes, that's why our wildlife crime program is so, I guess I would say, multifaceted. And that's why we need the veterinary side of it, because it's live trade, but we also need knowledge of international policy, of an enforcement, of political engagement, with Dr. Marker leading, all of these aspects based on everything that she built also in Namibia and in other parts of the world.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the funding and the support that we get. I mean, we can only do this with the funding, and we've had some incredibly generous individuals, corporations, grants, governments. You mentioned the DEFRA from the UK, and numerous others as well. But that's not it, because a well-known quote from Dr. Laurie Marker is that conservation is never done. We've bought time for this incredibly rare, as you say, it's quite unique group of cheetahs that are in that region, but it's going to take a long time and a lot of commitment and building, so there is a future for them. So, when we see the grants and the donors coming in, of which we're incredibly grateful for, we need to keep on moving forward. We need to, improve on every level if we're ever going to have a chance of succeeding in your dream of making the safe houses redundant.
Right. And definitely Dr. Marker's dream, I would say it's 100%. And I think that's why it's so important for us that we have such a dedicated team, both the IWT team and then the larger CCF family, whether it's our fundraising, a team or the affiliates all over the world that are basically, a machine that helps us move forward. Our strategies and programs and plans and veterinary diagnostics and research are only as good as we can actually implement them. So we're very, very lucky that we have people, and I can really testify, firsthand that we're working 24/7, weekends, nights, just to make sure that all the projects are done to get the best outcomes, and of course all the animals are taken care of, but then also to keep applying for funding, keep reaching out to everyone, to governments, to individuals, to let them know this is happening. This should be on the international. I know our work, for instance, with international conventions like CITES, like CMS, which is one is the Convention on Illegal or Legal Trade and Endangered Species, and the other is a Convention on Migratory Species. We're constantly working to basically put this on the international agenda because obviously we need this for political reasons and for awareness of governments, but also funding. If governments are aware that this is happening, they would allocate funding to wildlife crime units that would fight this. So it's all part of the same thing. So I think that's very unique that all of us are obviously working very hard on the professional aspects of our work, but then always thinking about, okay, so how do you fund this? How do you make sure that you have enough resources to do this? And I think that that's, in that sense, is why it's so important to engage also international audiences, because we've talked about NGOs, conventions, governments, communities on the ground, and then you always think, okay, so what can I, as an American, as a British person, you know, how can I help, or how can I work with something that is pretty remote for me? I don't see these cheetahs day to day. I know they're maybe cool and they're the fastest terrestrial animal, but I don't really, and I know that there are threats, but a lot of times people feel that there's a lot of doom and gloom when it comes to conservation, and they don't really know how they can help. And like you said, knowledge is key. The moment that you're more aware of what's going on, and you understand that you're right, that the local communities are the custodians, but at the end of the day, it's true, all of us benefit to have cheetahs in the world, to have elephants in the world, you know, wildlife. We're seeing, you know, what's happening with nature, and now humans' relationship with nature needs to change in anything, right? If we're looking at climate change, habitat destruction, pandemics, if we're looking at wildlife crime. So I think that, you know, interviews like this, awareness raising campaigns, and work that is done also outside of Africa, outside of the community level, are also extremely important, not only for resource generation, but just because it is all of humanity's, you know, to humanity's benefit to have these animals on the planet. So I think it's very important that everybody would, you know, make a point to inform themselves of everything that's going on, and we're always here to answer any questions, of course.
That's fantastic. Well, Cheetah, I know how busy you are, and I want to really thank you for joining us today and sharing your insight into the projects that we have done, are doing, and we will continue to do. So, Cheetah, thank you very much for everything you do, and it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian, and thank you, everyone.
If you want to learn more about that project or any of the projects that CCF are involved with both in Namibia and around the world, and also to make a donation or to sponsor a livestock guardian dog or a resident cheetah, please visit our website at cheetah.org. Now, if you liked the video, please leave us a like and subscribe to our channel, and you can also set the reminder for further episodes on Cheetah TV. Thanks very much for joining us, and I'll see you again next time.